record any of it.
There's a lot of, I'm really glad that you're going through it too. So, I mean, for your own business, it's going to be good for your own business, but it's also will be good to give you a reference for what I'm promoting for or proposing for the author project. So,
right.
And which you want to, which I would hope you would refer. And I'm going to talk to Susie about it too. So
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, we give you good reference for that. So just introduce yourself and give me your 1-minute elevator speech about who you are and what you do.
Sure. My name is Gregg Gonzales. I'm based in Denver, Colorado, and I am the founder of Joyful Living LLC. And my passion for my work right now is centered around helping people tell their story. I have developed a very unique way to do that through what I call the speakeasy method. And really the simplest way to talk about it is that I help people write through the use of their voice in a very unique, effective, but powerful way. And simply it is speaking your story. It is sharing your thoughts, your dreams, your memories, your emotions of whatever it is you want to tell, whether it's in the format of a book. It could be the blog for a business that you want to share your story about your work. It could just be something as simple as guided journaling that I love to do, where I ask you questions and you're sharing. But your voice is doing the writing for you. So rather than sitting at a computer to answer questions, you are in conversation with me, engaging, sharing, being open. But while we're doing that, we're recording it and then transcribing your words to text. And when you see your words come back in that form, not only are you amazed at the vastness of what is created, it's your voice. So I think that the energy of what comes out of those pages is even more powerful than to sit and write it yourself, because you can self-edit, you can change things up in the midst of writing. Whereas when you're speaking it, you're just speaking from the heart. So to me, that is something that I have always been about, is being curious about people, but hearing their authentic voice, sharing yourself in a very powerful way. And this is a great way to capture that and then to produce something with it very meaningful, like writing a book.
As I know, because I'm in the process of writing a book with you.
We are currently in the midst of it, yeah.
And it's really an awesome experience. So I mean, I can't say enough about it. It's a very cathartic experience, but it's also a very freeing experience too, because it's a much easier medium for me to speak than it is to sit at a computer and write. So
yeah, because you're not aware that you're writing.
Yeah.
You're talking about things that just, for you, talking about your life, let's say, or talking about things that you're passionate about, sharing why you do what you do. For a lot of people, it just comes. You know the answers to those questions. Sometimes when people ask you, what do you do? It can be a very simple, cathartic answer. It's just, this is what I do. But when you ask the question of why do you do what you do? And how did you choose this path to do what you do? Let's just say, that's where the story comes out. That's where you're speaking it without the thought of writing, and it just comes out natural. So that's so much of what I love to be a part of, is helping people tell their true, authentic story in a way that you're not even consciously aware that we're writing anything. But to me, just as much effort as it takes to sit at a computer to write, or to grab a notebook and write down your words, being in full presence and speaking it is just as powerful and just as artistic and beautiful as if you were to write it out in a traditional way.
Just even hearing you say that is, I mean, it's just great, because it just describes the process perfectly. But so Gregg, you and I met about 4 months ago. We met in about September, and I feel that you're in a different place now than you were when we met in September, and which was only 4 months ago. I feel that the way you're describing what it is that you do, it has transformed in a way that is so much more clear and focused. And I just want you to talk about what's happened over the past 4 months that's created that shift. I don't feel like it's a pivot, but I feel like it's much more finite. So can you talk about what's happened over the past 4 months?
You
And
know,
not, I wouldn't talk about the expertise project yet. I want to get specific questions into that, but just your transformation.
I think this whole period of COVID for me has been one of true self-exploration and redefining, because where I am now is not where I was a year ago. So over the course of the past year, my biggest motivator was trying to find who I truly am, what is my authentic self, and how can I serve others in that authentic self. So I would try a lot of different things within my joyful living work that resonated with me, but to me, it had to be something that I could easily explain. I could choose something that solved a specific problem that there was a need for. I was involved in so many different facets of my work that I kind of think of it as like a mad scientist in this laboratory. And I had all these different experiments going on at the same time, some in different stages of completion, but I couldn't stop any of them because they were there for a reason. It really came down to probably about 4 months ago when we met that I was still in the midst of tinkering with a lot of these experiments, but with one in specific that I had just started testing out over the summer. So it was still very much in its infancy 4 months ago, that when we met and we started talking about it and explaining this idea of using Zoom calls and meeting people in video to capture their story and produce content at the time. Wasn't even really thinking about it in terms of book production. It was just more of I loved hearing people's story, recording it. There's something to it. Let's figure out what. And over time, slowly but surely, I became not only just more aware of the power of this work and that there's really limitless amounts of direction it could go, but it really answered that bigger question of what do I do? Why do I do it? Who's it for? How does it work? Because to me, that was the biggest thing, is I couldn't establish a value to what I did because I couldn't explain what I do. I had so many different things going on. It was like hard to bring it into one central thing. So it really did. It took discipline. It was hard to stop some of these science experiments and table them, not shut them down, but just put them on the shelf for a little bit and focus on this idea of storytelling that really resonated with me because it fulfilled so many boxes of who I am, but then seeing the immediate impact of what the person on the other side was receiving. So that's really when it started clicking, started letting the other things go, but slowly but surely, like you said, reaching that focus level of attention on something specific that I could put all of my energy in. Because when you're doing all these things, you lose energy. You're just depleted at the end of the day because you're like, I'm busy, but I'm not being productive, is how I felt. And that had to change. And that's probably when that started, about 4 months ago.
Yeah, I just feel like have such a much more clear vision about what you do, and you have a lot of clients, and I think that speaks to that clarity. So when I met you, initially I think we met in September, and then in October is when I started to put together this project, this course, this program called the Expertise Project. And I thought you were a really good fit for it because you had an area of expertise that is niche, that is focused, that solves a certain problem for a lot of people that really want that. And maybe in the back of my mind, I kind of thought of myself too, because I thought I would be a good client for that. But at that point, I wasn't even thinking about writing a book.
Sure.
But that comes later. But then I had this idea for the Expertise Project where I would help clients move through the process of creating a scalable product in 90 days. And I was going to launch it in November. And I thought you would be a really good candidate for the pilot of the program. And so we had the conversation, you decided to do it. Can you talk to me, in November is when that started. And I don't know if that's when you started the content, but can you talk to me about the program and what that has done for you, if in the context of your work and the context of the clarity of your work, all of that. Can you talk about that a little bit?
I know when we started talking about the program, my initial reaction to it was, I can't take another thing on. It just felt like another thing that I was going to be able to give 10, 15, 20% to, because I had all these other things going on. But I also knew from meeting with you and that immediate connection we had of what this was for, that it was to help bring all of those things into a centralized area of expertise and focus and attention that is what I needed. So I feel like you and I kind of met at just the right time to really get me into that level of clarity. I think, I don't know when exactly the conversation happened, but you had asked me that question about, what do you do? And I think my answer was kind of similar, but it was kind of here, there, and everywhere. And you're like, no, you help people write books. And it's like, okay. In my mind, I'm like, there's more, but you're like, no, you help people write books. You solve the problem of helping people write books super fast. I mean, your thing at the time was the accelerated writing process. The time that you're saving people from having to sit down and write out a 10,000 word document would take months for some people, maybe longer. We can do it in an hour. And so I needed you to remind me of the specificity of the problem that I was solving, that I knew it was there, but I didn't think of it in terms of how I spoke about it, and thinking about what it is. It goes back to value. Like, what's the value of the work that I'm providing? Not just the problem, but the value. And then the next conversation was, okay, how much are you charging? And when I told you that, you were the person that said, way too low for what the value you bring. You were such a huge catalyst of my transformation, of not only just being clear, but of obtaining value of what I do. So immediately, and I hadn't even committed to joining you at that point. I think we were just still in that midst of, you were putting this together. Once that came in and just hit me like a thunderbolt, I'm like, well, sure. Sign me up. And I think just the enthusiasm of that conversation, the groups that you're leading, the people that have been in the groups, the interaction with them, and just kind of that feeling of collective support. Everybody's kind of at different stages of their business, but also that feeling that we're all kind of in it together. That community that is formed in that has had just tremendous value for me, to hear people, to be able to be a guidance for some people. Some have actually turned into clients that I'm grateful for. So, I mean, I can't even begin to talk about how impactful the Expertise Project has been, and you have been, because yeah, 4 months ago was when things started clicking, when things became like really clicked and focused. You were a huge part of that.
It's been really fun to be a part of. Fun to see you. fun to see. It's been really fun to see. Just, I mean, you're rolling, and it's only gonna. And there's so much synergy between what you do and what I do, that it's only gonna lead to future dominating the world. That's what I think.
Well, no, I mean, that's, again, if you really were to kind of sit down and marinate in this synergistic relationship. I just think of it as it's the universe just kind of made it happen. You were such a huge catalyst of change. You're a constant source of inspiration. I love working with you on your book. Now we're talking about collaborating together, incorporating the work you do with the Expertise Project into my authors, moving their book forward in terms of their brand clarity, their voice, their message. It's just like, when you kind of have that window of opportunity crack open, and then that window turns into like that garage door opening. It's just like you just step on through, and I'm just so grateful.
Because the more specific you get, the more opportunities come to you. It's just, it seems counterintuitive, but it's very true, because if you solve a problem, then you're connected to so many other things. It's really amazing. This is the last question I'll ask you, because I know we have to get to our meeting. Is there one, because I don't know how much you've been in the lessons. Is there any module, or is there any idea that has really resonated with you or changed the way that you approach things within the Expertise projects? Can you talk about that?
I mean, I probably still would say the very first module of brand identity or identity brand. Mm-hmm. I think even just taking those questions, I had to pull it up here because I look at these every day, because I need to remind myself. It's kind of like a mantra, when you have a mantra that you use as kind of your go-to to help center and provide clarity in your own day-to-day life and practice. To me, as a business owner, as someone who has a product or a service to sell, I need to know, what is my expertise? Where does my credibility come from? What am I offering? All the things that you ask in that first section of just knowing your brand. And there's so much that go into it, like the core values is such a huge piece to me, because I help people write books, but to me, as we talked about, it's your story, it's your voice, it's your vulnerability in sharing that, but the courageousness that goes into that. So there's values that go into just the compassion and the listening and the care and the humility. And I mean, you can go into so many different things that are part of it, that as a business owner, when you know your core values and you can answer these questions with clarity, your customers, your potential customers you just need to know where they are and speak your truth, speak your brand. So I would say the very first module is still something I go back to as a key piece for any business owner to help them find that solidity of their clarity of brand.
Okay, great. Anything else you want to pop in there in the last minute? You covered a lot, so thank you for that.
Oh, no. I just put in like just my own personal plug. I think any entrepreneur, especially if you're venturing out on your own, because there's no specific roadmap to how to do it. There's a lot of books on how to be an entrepreneur, but your specific mode of business could be your own, and that's fine. But I would say, regardless of your level of entrepreneurship, the Expertise Project is an incredible place to start to bring things into more clearer focus, to save you a lot of time and energy, to when you start to sell, you start to put yourself out there that your customers are going to relate to and connect to, and ultimately is going to bring you success.
So awesome. It's so awesome working with you. It's amazing.
Yeah. So
cool. So much synergy in what we do. I'm so happy about that. So,
what I was thinking about, these retreats that I'm working on, so much of them are going to be centered around your story and telling your story and leading people into becoming authors or doing some kind of work together with Speakeasy, that we could put together an entrepreneurial retreat that can tie in this whole idea of why do you do what you do? Who do you serve? Like answering a lot of these questions,
Yeah.
and make the retreat kind of an expertise project, you know, beginning point for people to then work with you on this and then work with me on creating a book. But we're doing it in kind of this amazing setting where it's intentional and all about sharing stories and networking and just the whole reason why retreats are so successful. But I was just thinking you and I co-hosting a retreat would be a lot of fun.
Oh, it's going to happen. I like that idea a lot.
Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to stop recording.
Okay.